I'm going to talk about being wrong, and it involves our illustrious mayor, Dan Ridenour. In the spring and summer in the year 2022, the city of Muncie dealt with a situation in which Dan Ridenour, the mayor of Muncie, put forward a plan to turn a brownfield, the old Chevy factory plant property, into a solar field. And we all, the normal people in Muncie who listen to this, and thank God the council members who listened to this, thought this sounds like a terrible plan. When all of this happened, one of the things that I was really incensed about was the fact that the mayor bought this property, bought this land for $110,000 without talking to anybody, without talking to the council, without talking to the Board of Works, without anybody. All right. And that just really seemed gross to me, because that's just par for the course with what he does. That's just how he interacts with deals, and that's how he deals with the public, and that's just what the mayor does when he's doing deals like this. This brownfield was being managed by a thing called Racer Trust, and Racer Trust was in charge of trying to keep it good in the eyes of IDEM. They were in charge of trying to clean it up. They were in charge of trying to make sure that everything still, was as above board with this property as possible. While Racer Trust owned this property, they were in charge of paying $24,000 in property tax to the city a year. They were also in charge of paying the city of Muncie $21,000 in stormwater fees. That's $45,000 in money to the city of Muncie. And when Dan Ridenour bought this land for $110,000, no longer were we getting that $45,000. And we did pay out the $110,000. And I thought that this was horrible. All right. I thought that this was definitely not a good situation. Well, a mailer went out over this past week. The mailer was paid for by the Indiana Democratic Party. All right. It wasn't paid for by Jeff Robinson or by Jeff Robinson campaign. It was paid for by the Indiana State Democratic Party. So the state party paid for this ad on behalf of a Democrat candidate running for mayor. Things like that happen a lot. And this is what the mailer looked like. Conflicts of interest, connect the bots. BOT. Build, operate, transfer agreements. We have Mayor Ridenour here. We have Aaron Clark, city councilor. We have his cousin, or over his right-hand shoulder there, Greg Martz. It says, failed solar farm and new fire department. Bad deals for Muncie. Then the backside says this. Mayor spends $110,000 to buy contaminated 55-acre GM site. $24,000 lost from tax rolls, and city now pays itself $21,000 from the city of Muncie to the sanitary district, $21,000 in stormwater fees. That's what we used to get. That's a total of $45,000 a year for those keeping tracks. Then you drive it along and it says, Mayor taps GM Development to handle solar field project. It is discovered that Councilman Aaron Clark is cousins with Greg Martz, the CEO of GM Development, Ridenour campaign donor. Remember, I showed you where Greg Martz had donated Ridenour $3,000 for his campaign. That's something that's interesting. Councilman Aaron Clark declares there's no conflict of interest when asked to recuse himself. And I want to be clear, the legal team for the city of Muncie, for the city council, also declared by law there is technically not a conflict of interest. There might be the appearance of impropriety, and the mayor and Councilman Clark ran on removing the appearance of impropriety. But now that they're in the position, well, it is what it is. City plans to borrow $18 million to build 2 new fire stations. We see the mayor drinking a cup of coffee after buying overpriced land from campaign donor and hiring friends to work at City Hall. The mayor still wants to hire a donor, Greg Martz, yet again to build the new fire stations for $18 million. And then the tagline says, "How much will the mayor's friends and family deals cost us?" So there's the ad that went out. The mayor of Muncie 5 hours ago posted a new post to his campaign Facebook page. It says, "Whereas the council now desires to authorize the acquisition of the site by the city." This was from Resolution 2-22. That's the second resolution in the year 2022 from the January 10th, 2022 City Council meeting. Approved with all 9 council members voting to acquire the Chevy site before it was purchased by the city of Muncie. This fact and many other verifiable facts were somehow left off of the negative mailer sent and authorized by my opponent. And then he shows an amended resolution 2-22, and he shows where this is, and he shows the votes, and it is what it is. All right. And, okay, this is very, very important. Whereas the project is to be located at the site commonly known as the former Chevy plant site located in the city, the site. So, ladies and gentlemen, I, Kristopher Bilbrey, am here to admit that for the last year and a half, I have been wrong every time that I have said that the mayor bought this land without notifying the public or without notifying the council. Bam, there we are. That's pretty big breaking news. How freaking ever. Ladies and gentlemen, I keep track of a lot of crap. And I can tell you a lot of what goes on in the city of Muncie. I can tell you a lot of what goes on now. I can tell you a lot of what goes on last week. I can tell you a lot about what's going on 6 months from now. I can tell you a lot about what went on in 1968 in Muncie. And I wasn't even born. Plus, I can tell you what's going on in Anderson and Newcastle and Indianapolis and Winchester and Richmond. I got a lot on my plate. And maybe in June of 2022, I have slipped my memory of a resolution that we heard one time in January of 2022. But for the love of God, I have asked and begged and pleaded with this administration to tell me when they took it before the council. If I have said it once, I've said it 1,000 times. The mayor was wrong when he bought this without any approval. But the backside of that is, if I've said that once, I've said it 1,000 times. If I've asked it once, I've asked it 1,000 times. And the mayor never once opened his mouth and said, Bilbrey, we did it in January, buddy. Resolution 2-22. His danatics. They get on and they say, you're an idiot. They get on and they say you're stupid. They get on and say you're saying wrong information. But none of his gatekeepers, his friends, his cheerleaders ever said, Bilbrey, buddy, it happened in January. I've spoken to the council members. I've spoken to at least 5 of the 9 council members that were on that council at that moment and voted. And most of them have told me, I don't know, we didn't do it. The mayor should have talked to us. When a member of the public, a member of journalism, a member of the media, a member from outer space is going to these people and asking an outright bloody damn question, because I was wrong. But where the hell was Dan Ridenour to point me into the right direction? Where was the communications director to point me into the right direction? Where was Shireen Wegley? You know, maybe if the Dan addicts would lay off the freaking laugh emoji and stop hitting the laugh emoji on everybody's post, and if they would start doing their job, not being argumentative, not being assholes, not telling people they're idiots or they're wrong or they're stupid for having questions, but maybe if they would listen to the question and they would look for an answer and they would do their jobs as being public servants. And when a citizen legitimately says, hey, did you take this before the board, before the council, before the MRC? Maybe that public official could get off their butt, could walk over someplace and ask somebody and find out and get a true answer for the person. Maybe their first thing shouldn't be to fire off on social media telling people they're ignorant. Maybe it should be to do their job and to get an answer. I was wrong. But you know who's handcuffed to me? You know who's handcuffed to me? Dan Ridenour. Because I asked him multiple times to tell me what gave him the authority to purchase the property. And when they just sat there with their stupid shit-eating grins, well, I don't know. And they purposefully let me push that narrative. Dan let me push that narrative. Dan is responsible for this wrong information as I am. Matter of fact, maybe a little bit more so. What was he doing? Was he just holding this for the right time? In what world would it make sense for them to not tell me? I'm out. Good night.